But what if I told you this same compound can support mitochondrial function, protect your brain, and even help the body bounce back from oxidative stress? Today, I want to take you behind the scenes of a compound that I've come to rely on in my practice, especially for patients that are dealing with low energy, brain fog, inflammation, and poor recovery. And while it's not new, methylene blue is finally getting the attention that it deserves in the world of longevity and functional medicine. Let's zoom out for a second and look at what's actually happening at a cellular level. When we talk about energy, hormones, inflammation, or aging, it all comes back to the mitochondria. These are your cell's engines. They generate ATP, the fuel that powers everything from muscle contractions to neurotransmitter production. But here's the thing, the mitochondria does not burn clean all the time. Under chronic stress, poor sleep, environmental toxins, infections, you name it, these engines start to misfire. And when that happens, you get symptoms: fatigue, brain fog, slow recovery, immune dysregulation, and the all too common phrase, "Doc, I don't feel like myself anymore." Now, here's where methylene blue enters the picture. Methylene blue acts like a traffic controller for your mitochondria. When the electron transport chain, the system of which your cells use to create energy, gets jammed up, methylene blue steps in to shuttle the electrons efficiently and bypass the roadblocks. Think of it like an alternative route during a traffic jam. It doesn't replace your mitochondria, it helps them keep moving, especially when the system is strained. This is why it's being looked at from everything from chronic fatigue to Alzheimer's. It improves mitochondrial efficiency without overstimulating the system. Let me back up for a second and talk about redox balance. This is a word you'll hear a lot in functional medicine, and it basically refers to how well your body can manage oxidation. Think of like energy production, immune activation versus reduction, like repair recovery. In a healthy system, your body rides that balance and does so really well, like a fine-tuned suspension. But when the scales tend to tip, especially towards oxidative stress, your mitochondria then suffer. You get more inflammation, more cellular wear and tear, and slower the healing. Methylene blue works as a redox buffer. It helps restore that balance by accepting and donating electrons where needed, keeping your cellular environment stable and functional. Here is where it gets even more interesting. Nitric oxide. At baseline, nitric oxide is helpful. It improves blood flow, supports oxygen delivery, and plays a role in how your immune system responds to stress. But in an inflamed, stressed, or chronically ill patient, that system can go off rails. Excess of nitric oxide tends to lead to formations of peroxynitrate, which is a nasty compound that damages the mitochondria, inflames brain tissue, and disrupts cellular signaling. Methylene blue helps regulate the system in two ways. At low doses, it enhances nitric oxide beneficial effects, and at higher therapeutic doses, it inhibits excess of nitric oxide due to reduced inflammation and protection of the mitochondria. This is why it's particularly useful in conditions involving neuroinflammation, fatigue, and redox imbalance. But it doesn't just mask symptoms, it supports the upstream pathway. In my clinic, here's where I typically bring in methylene blue into the mix. From patients who suffer from chronic fatigue that hasn't improved with standard intervention, or brain fog, or early signs of neurodegenerative disease. I've also used it in patients that suffer from mold, toxin, or post-viral infection. I even use it on the other end of the spectrum, where for my high-performance individuals looking to improve mitochondrial function, or as an adjacent to NAD, mitochondrial peptides, or near-infrared light therapy. Now let me give you an example. I had a patient in his early 50s, former athlete, now a corporate executive, who came in saying that I just don't feel like how I used to. And for the most part, his labs came back pretty clean. But when we checked the organic acid testing, it showed significant mitochondrial strain. So that's when we started adding NAD and then methylene blue at about 5 milligrams daily. And then within a few weeks, it started to feel like someone's turned the lights back on for him. And that's not an uncommon response that you get when mitochondrial support is getting dialed in. Now, let me be clear. Methylene blue is not a more is better compound. This is a precision molecule and needs to be dosed carefully. I typically start patients around 2.5 to 5 milligrams daily. And depending on the tolerance and response, we may titrate up to 20 or 25 milligrams. But that's not where you start. Going too high too fast can cause symptoms such as palpitations, overstimulation, anxiety, or even rebound fatigue. Also, you have to be careful with patients who are taking SSRIs, MAOIs, or serotonergic meds, because you want to proceed with caution on that because there's always a risk for serotonin syndrome. And if you're stacking this with peptides, hormones, or red light therapy, be sure it's part of a coordinated plan. It's very powerful and synergy can cut both ways. One last point, sourcing matters. Do not buy methylene blue off Amazon, eBay, or sites that sell research chemicals. It's so important that methylene blue is from a 503A compounding pharmacy because it follows USP standard third-party testing for purity and sterility and compounded specifically for human use. Anything that's labeled not human use or lack a certificate of analysis is not worth the risk. Even trace contaminants, solvents, heavy metals can turn a helpful compound into a neurotoxin that defeats the whole purpose. That being said, methylene blue is not a stimulant. It's not a biohack. It's a clinically significant molecule that supports energy, resilience, and cellular repair at the root cause level. If you're someone who feels like you're in a fog, your energy is tapped out, or your recovery isn't what it used to be, this may be a tool worth exploring with the right guidance. We're not just talking about treating symptoms here. We're talking about restoring function, starting with the mitochondria and working outward. If this helped you understand a little more about methylene blue and how it works, feel free to like, subscribe, and reach out to my clinic. I'm Dr. Douglas Christensen. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.